The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Your conclusion is that changing from the scientific consensus of it being from a lab to a neutral position by the CIA was significantly influenced by Anthony Fauci?
It was significantly influenced by Anthony Fauci's injecting himself into the IC. And to go to the second part of your question about what happened, particularly during the 90-day study, we have documentation that shows that as of August 12th, the CIA was considering calling this a lab leak, August 12th of 2021. And then that changed on August 17th of 2021. Right. And unfortunately, because the CIA would not provide us documentation that we asked for, we have no idea why that changed. And that's
And they weren't alone, because we know the FBI was coming to the same conclusion that it was lab leak, as well as the FBI.
Good morning, America. Good morning, world. Good morning, CHD. Welcome once again. My name is Michael Kane. I'm the Director of Advocacy here at Children's Health Defense. We are live this Thursday morning, and of course, Financial Rebellion is coming on to discuss the critical, horrendous situation with data centers coming to a town near you. But first, we do have breaking news from yesterday. Sucked up the news cycle yesterday. CIA whistleblower, Fauci-led multi-agency cover-up of COVID lab leak evidence. Jim Erdman testified yesterday before the Homeland Security Committee chaired by Senator Rand Paul. And this was one of the, I think, the most important hearings we have seen to date about COVID. Jim is a current officer with the CIA. He's not retired. He's not former. He is in the agency, and he's came out as a whistleblower. His testimony was not cleared by the CIA. They are not happy about that. And but he's interested in truth, and he's interested in getting out there what the American people need to know. So before Financial Rebellion comes on, we weren't able to get Jim on. He's not doing media right now, but we were able to get the next best thing. We have Stephanie Weidel, who's the executive director of Feds for Freedom, an organization that Jim co-founded. Let's bring Stephanie on. Stephanie, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
Thanks so much for having me, Michael. It's good to be back.
So I was on the phone with you the day before this broke yesterday, and you wouldn't tell me who the whistleblower was. A number of my friends in D.C. wouldn't tell me who it was, and actually, I appreciate that, right? You guys were keeping this information close. It was important to protect Jim. You were in the hearing room yesterday. You were right behind him. You witnessed the whole thing. Tell us a little bit about your experience being there and seeing this critical news break.
It was wonderful to see it being brought to the public, finally. It was kind of a surreal experience seeing our co-founder and one of my best friends, Jim, up there testifying. But Jim is an upstanding man. Let me tell you, besides being one of my best friends, he is one of the most upstanding, moral, ethical men that I know. He is a legend. And I know that he is a very decorated CIA officer. And he has basically undermined his career in the name of truth and transparency. He did it by founding Feds for Freedom so that the people who were standing up to the mandates and whistleblowing in the CIA, in the DOD, in every agency across the board in the federal government, so that they had the protection that they deserved. He took on himself the job of really the federal government. All the whistleblower protections that are in place, we took on, Feds for Freedom took on, and it was through the work of Jim.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I do believe that Jim was also working in the DNI office for a while with Tulsi Gabbard as well, too, going through this. I don't think he is now. I think he's back officially at the CIA right now. Is that correct?
Right. So he was part of the Directors Initiatives Group, and he was overseeing COVID origins, AHI, the anomalous health incidents, and I think they call it UAP, or it's basically yeah, is it UFO kind of deal? But that task force was shut down. What's really interesting with all of this is why it was shut down, how it was shut down, and what I think yesterday really revealed is that the CIA has been undermining Tulsi Gabbard and that Directors Initiatives Group for some time, and that is one reason I think it was shut down.
There was news that broke from Jim's testimony. Jim talked about the CIA coming into DNI Gabbard's office and taking files that were related to COVID origins, that were related to MK Ultra. And then people actually said, breaking news, Tulsi Gabbard's office just raided. I don't know if that was true. I think it didn't just happen. I think Jim was recounting what had happened in months prior. If you can elaborate on that, that's helpful.
Yes. So what was very interesting is if you look at a lot of the articles and Twitter posts that have been written since the hearing, they've been focusing a lot on Fauci. But that wasn't the big reveal. We knew Fauci's interactions with the intelligence community. We knew that he was using the intelligence community to make health policy. But what was interesting is that Jim detailed how intelligence decisions are made and how the CIA has been undermining true national security. That has been the biggest explosive testimony that we have had on the dealings of the CIA. And so to hear him talk about how the CIA took back files, didn't give the files asked for, and then took back the files that they had, it shows that the CIA is, it's acting apart from the US government. It's its own rogue agency, and it needs to be held accountable. You really question, Tulsi Gabbard is supposed to be their boss. So what is that?
Yeah, it's a very good point. I think, this goes back many decades of what the CIA has built and has been empowered to do. At one point, Jim brought up, we need a new church commission. And I was really happy to see Senator Johnson and Senator Paul second that immediately and call it the Johnson-Paul Commission, that they want to do that. The church commission goes back 50 years, and Senator Paul revealed he still can't get the classified final report from it. And this was a moment for me. I like to geek out on some of the details. He said he was told there is a room with over 400 boxes that has that classified church commission final report. They said, if you could find it, you could read it. They sent him in there. He couldn't have any staff. No one could help him, just him alone to find it. And this happened 50 years ago. For those who don't know, the Church Commission exposed how the CIA owns 75-80% of the media. It detailed information about MK Ultra that had never been put out before, and many, many more critical intelligence fiascos and scandals. And here we are now, and we have two amazing senators saying we need another church commission. That really struck me, and I'm just so proud of Senator Johnson, so proud of Senator Paul for saying that's not easy to say. I'm sure, Director of Central Intelligence not happy hearing that being said yesterday.
It was interesting also hearing Jim detail, okay, how do you reform the CIA? Yeah. And he mentioned how, the Congress actually can defund portions of the CIA. They can pull the purse strings if the CIA acts roguely, which they have, and they are continuing to do. It's not just in the past. It's not just a COVID cover-up. It's happening right now. So pulling the federal funds, there needs to be gain-of-function oversight, and Rand Paul actually detailed a bit of his legislation that he has. I think it's called risk. It was I forget the name of the act, but it's giving oversight to gain-of-function procedures, and it defines gain-of-function.
Yes, and And it also says that you can't be funding gain of function research and then have those scientists that are involved in that doing oversight of what is
right.
happening and saying, like, because that's what happened with Fauci. Fauci was funding this, and then they asked him, is it gain of function? He said no. But of course he's going to say no, because he's guilty. He's a criminal. He's guilty of a crime.
Right.
So
There
yeah.
needs to be another body, a body outside of that realm that oversees this. And I know that his legislation incorporates that. Going back to the CIA and what they're currently doing, Jim also detailed how the CIA was illegally monitoring the DIG, or the Directors Initiatives Group's communications. There has to be accountability for that, or this will continue. Now,
Stephanie, I'm so sorry. Unfortunately, we are out of time. This is just a breaking. We could go on for another hour here, but I'll definitely have you back. This story's not going away. This story, I think we're going to see weeks and months of this story. And thank God for Jim. Thank God for the Feds for Freedom work you guys are doing. We will definitely have you back. We'll definitely talk about this more soon, for sure.
thank you very much.
Thanks so much for joining us, Stephanie. Okay, we'll definitely be coming back to that story. But right now, as always on Thursdays, we need to get into financial rebellion. Let's roll it.
Oh, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Financial Rebellion. I hope you enjoyed that first bit of breaking news with Michael Caine. Fascinating, and I know they'll get her back on again to continue that conversation. But look who's back. Reinette's back. We missed you, Reinette.
No, I said earlier, it feels like it's been ages, and so much has happened in this little spot of time that I was away. It's kind of shocking.
But we're really thrilled to have you back. And good morning, Carolyn.
Good morning.
Right. So the first thing, well, the show is called the data centers. We're talking about data centers today, or data, whichever way you want to say it. So are we going to start with a clip, or are we going to start with a headline? Here we go. So watch AI data centers spreading like an aggressive cancer. So I guess, Reinette, you're going to be educating us today on what's going on. I do want to say that I'm getting a lot of people saying, "What? I don't really understand what the deal is with this. Why should we even be concerned?" So I think by the end of this show, people need to understand why this is a really serious problem.
Yeah, we will. We'll get into that.
All right. Well, over to you then.
All righty. So essentially, I spent the last day and a half putting together a document, and it's called Fighting AI Data Centers and Unlawful Property Seizures. So what's happening is, first of all, we have to look at the language being used. These are not normal AI data centers. These are surveillance centers. And this is an extension of what I can see as a military gone rogue. So this is the US government coming in and literally using eminent domain, weaponizing eminent domain where they can seize property. And so we're going to get into it, but I have almost a 10-page document here, 9.5 pages, that is a strategic master document. It's talking points, it's constitutional arguments, and it's also action steps, including if you want to submit a FOIA to different agencies and so on in the government. And so I really encourage people to hear what we have to say. And then I also really encourage people that once this is put up onto CHD TV, the document as a PDF will be there for you as well. And I really encourage that you print it out right now. Do not just bookmark it and say, I'll come back to it later. Print it out now. And this is really to help you fight and push back, because there are some weaknesses to their argument, to the government's seizure of property. And I don't know if people have been paying attention, but people in Utah have just found out that they're going to have massive AI. And again, we should not be calling it a data center. It's a surveillance center. It is to surveil every single aspect of your life, where you go, your health, your taxes, who you talk to, your business, what you purchase, your conversations, your emails, your texts. It all goes in to completely control you. And it's not just the surveilling side of it all that's an endangerment to the communities. But there's also been clear evidence that these create these heat islands that are many miles out, heating up the local area. It also has a hum and a buzz that is audible miles away. It's actually making people ill. It is also has these bright, bright, bright lights, which I am quite sure that can be seen by satellite. And they're on 24/7, and they're also draining they're draining their wells. They're using all of their water. And these are drought-stricken areas that are already suffering. So there seems to be this massive, massive overdrive right now by the Silicon Valley, by the military, by our government to put these in place. And timing is everything. So in addition, it's gotten so bad that it was just announced a couple of weeks ago, South Lake Tahoe, the power company who provides their power on the Nevada side, not the California side, just let them know, oh, by the way, you're no longer getting power from us. You're going to be losing 75% of your energy starting May of 2027. And there is no rebound. There's no quick rebound to any of this. And in fact, I was saying before we went live, I put out a Substack today about how California just got its last oil tanker. Why is this important? When you run out of electricity or your electricity is greatly curtailed, it's not just that you might have brownouts and blackouts and not have power to your home. It's like you don't have city services. You may not be getting water. You may not be getting sewage. You can't flush your toilet. You may not be getting waste management services any longer. 911 calls, emergency calls, firefighters, all of these things are at risk. And what's going to happen is as the power gets pulled away and into the data centers, they're going to pick and choose which cities and what communities live and which ones die. And it's very clear that the farmers also are at great, great risk. They're denying them their water. So it's not just the surveillance side. It's that it literally usurps and takes away everything that every community and every resident is dependent upon for survival in a modern age.
Don't we have a clip, Reinette, of the noise?
Yes, we do. I believe so. So that's 24/7. And what you're not seeing is that there's also these massive pipes that come out of it, and it's just billowing like the sooty smoke. There's forget about climate change, which I don't believe in. Forget about, protecting ourselves, the EPA protecting us from, soot and pollutants. It's just billowing out. And so across the board, this is moving quickly. So what I've done is I put together this document. And again, I really encourage you download it. And so part one is the core argument, which is they're saying eminent domain. We can go out there, and there are now people from Georgia to Utah who've been told we're seizing your home and we're seizing your property. Now, the basis for this of eminent domain is that it must be for the public good, for public use. Right? In the Fifth Amendment, it reads, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. That is happening, right? But there's a Supreme Court case, Kelo versus the City of New London, it's 2005, which massively expanded the definition of public use. And it's a hard line, so I want to read this to you. The government would be forbidden from taking petitioners' land for the purpose of conferring a private benefit on a particular private property, nor would the city or county be allowed to take property under the mere pretext of a public purpose, when its actual purpose was to bestow a private benefit. That is what is going on. There is no benefit to a community for having a massive AI data center that's going to take all their power, all their water, is going to 24/7 hum in the community. It's going to create dead zones because of just the sound alone. It's going to pollute the area, heat up the area, while surveilling every single citizen there and around the states. So this is a public use fraud, essentially. And eminent domain has always been there to serve the public for roads and schools and infrastructure and so on, and hospitals and things like that. But that's not what this is. And so the government cannot take your land to build a tool that is going to be weaponized and used against you. And that's what these data centers are. They're surveillance centers. They're not to improve your AI conversation and for chat to help you. So just know that. And 62% of Americans, by the way, are against the data centers. They say the risks outweigh the benefits, and it's very true. So this legal doctrine of pretextual taking exists precisely for this moment. So this is really the cover story, like, oh, it's for your benefit, but really this is an expansion of state power, and it's over private citizens and their privacy. So we're going to get into surveillance. That is the public harm argument. It's not to benefit us, it's to surveil us and to control us completely, and to essentially put America into an open air prison. That's what this is. This is the foundation for that completely. And what they're doing is they're using military bases to put the privately owned data centers onto military bases to sidestep local control and local government, environmental impact reports, and so on. And so the Department of Defense is doing this. This has been through executive orders, and they're doing this as and claiming them as national security assets. And that's just a classification decision, right? And that is truly just a sidestep local government. So what's also quite scary is that these are 50-year-long leases. So once these data centers are in the military bases, they're going to be there for 50 years. In fact, they'll be there forever because they're never going to go away. And it's infrastructure of a surveillance state dressed in essentially military clothing. That's what we're dealing with. So you've got the water impact, you've got the environment impact, you've got the community impact. It does not, they're saying, oh, it's providing jobs. No, once this thing is built, the jobs pretty much dry up. That's not going to happen either. And there's already more than 160 new data centers that have been built in the past 3 years, and California is leading that charge, by the way. And I'll get into more of that later, but it's quite horrific. So
can I comment in just a minute? Finish your sentence.
No, go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment. What you're talking about, the surveillance center, is absolutely true, probably, as to the military-based data centers that are now becoming clear being proposed. But initially, the data centers were, there's a Meta data center, there's a, probably an Amazon data center, and those are presumably for AI, which you can argue AI has a reason to surveil, but it also runs the whole AI platforms that we're talking about, infiltrating everything and taking jobs and all of that. But the initial data centers were things that would be proposed to a city government and which would have to pass it. And now what has happened is a lot of places, people are now onto this, and activist groups are telling the city council or the county commissioners or whatever, we don't want this. You can see that. And so there's now an end run around that. There's an argument generally, and I think this applies to additional, not just military data centers, but there's an argument that for national security reasons, we need data centers. So that's an excuse to have the federal government have jurisdiction over what the states and the local people are doing. And so it's not just that it's surveillance purposes on military bases. That's as far as I know, a new thing that they're talking about, putting them on, having them military, and perhaps the military owns those. But and I understand Carlisle's involved in financing the one, I think in Utah, or the one that's exposed as a military thing. But it's also for AI. It's not for no reason that we benefit from, because some of us use AI, and there are a lot of purposes of AI that may be legitimate. I just wanted to clarify that.
Correct. And we also have Peter Thiel's Palantir. He's completely entrenched now in the military. It's one and the same. So it's, and I'm not going out there and calling all military servicemen and women. I'm talking about the Pentagon and Silicon and how they have now blended in. You can't define them; they're one and the same. So this is the danger. And so there's a lot of massive constitutional violations going on. And again, this is not about. I use AI for research and tons of different stuff, but that's not what this is. People are like, oh, it's just AI because we're all using it now. It's like, no. This is to completely control every aspect of your life, which also would include carbon credits and the whole digital ID and where you can shop, where you can travel, whether you can fly or not. I mean, all of these things are going
just
to
understand there's a cover story.
The cover story is it's for your benefit, and it's absolutely not. And I'll get into it, but our Kash Patel has told us this. It's not. This is what it's for. Our president has signed executive orders to tell us this is what it's for. They're not even hiding it. So let's go into what the arguments are. First of all, we've got several constitutional amendments that are being violated here. The first and foremost is the First Amendment. And people say, well, what does the First Amendment have to do with data centers, AI data centers? Well, what it does is it's a massive surveillance infrastructure. And it's going to be on free speech, what you have on social media, what you say on your texts, in your emails, on your phone, all of that. Everything is going to be collected. And when citizens know that their communications and their movements and their relations are being completely collected and so on, this actually quells people's traveling, their First Amendment, free speech and so on. And it creates an architecture of fear, essentially. And what it does is it actually suppresses constitutionally protected free speech, and people self-censor themselves because they're afraid. So that's the first thing. So it's a First Amendment violation. The other thing is it's a Fourth Amendment violation as well, which prohibits unreasonable searches and seizures. So what's happening is that these AI data centers, these surveillance centers, are now collecting all of this every aspect, everything you purchase, everything you see online, every website that you visit. And not only that, but generally now they can even see what you're looking at on your screen, whether it's your phone or your computer. So they're collecting all that and they're seizing it and they're collecting it and they're using it against you. So without
a warrant.
Without a warrant, without probable cause. It's a systemic violation of the Fourth Amendment protections. And so these data centers are physical infrastructure enabling the violation at scale. I mean, like at scale, unlike we've ever seen before. So that's two constitutional violations. The next one is what's called the Fifth Amendment, and it's the takings clause. This is the taking of private property. And for public use, right? And they're saying, well, it's operated by a private corporation for private profit, is what it really is, right? It provides the government intelligence, and also their agencies with surveillance capabilities and directed at citizens. So our agencies, our government gets all of this information on everything that we're doing, and it's also been shown through documented evidence that this serves, massive domestic surveillance, and there's anything but a public benefit. So this is all being built on land that's being seized through eminent domain, justified by false public use claims. And these are the arguments people are going to have to really push back on. So we have another constitutional right that's being violated, and that's due process. So citizens have a substantive due process right not to have government power exercised against them arbitrarily without legitimate public purpose. So this is a combination of public seizure, environmental harm, surveillance infrastructure imposed on communities with no meaningful consent. Like, in fact, everyone is showing up at these meetings, 100%, hundreds of people showing up, saying no to their county commissioners, and their county commissioners are voting for it anyway. And then the last and final one, actually there's two more, I take that back, is the 10th Amendment. And that's the federal government's use of executive orders to override state and local zoning laws. We've been fighting this around the telecoms. Same darn thing. They're overriding all local control, which is a 10th Amendment violation. So you've got that as well. And then lastly, you have the 14th Amendment. This is around equal protection, and this is for communities themselves. So communities bearing a disproportionate environmental and social burdens of this build out, they're usually poorer, farming, politically marginalized. not represented at the at the federal level, and they're the ones who are going to be facing the biggest burden, because this is where they're going to be putting these surveillance centers. And so there's a lot of violations going on, and when this happens, and if you are in an area, especially in an area that's a lot of flat land, not that you're not going to be impacted, like for instance with Lake Tahoe, it's mountainous, but their power is being usurped to go feed a surveillance center. However, if you're in a flat area, whether you have a lot of water or not, this is prime real estate for the surveillance centers. And so
it's also prime real estate for farming.
Well, 100%. And so what also you have to understand is right now, it's the perfect storm, you guys, and it 100% looks all by design. So now you have fertilizer manufacturing that's just completely plummeted because of what's happened with the Strait of Hormuz and in the Middle East. And so you have farmers saying, I don't have fertilizer to grow. And so they have farmland that is going to have, turn into a wasteland, and they're not going to be able to pay their bills. And so ultimately, this is a perfect storm where the AI data centers are going to come in and say, well, gosh, we're so sorry that you can't grow any crops. We'll buy your property from you for pennies on the dollar. And we're already seeing that. This is what is happening. So it's perfect. They can't grow crops, so they just sell it because they're out of business. So it's very important that, again, if this is part 4 in this document that we'll have for everyone to download, but you need to educate yourself before they even move in, before you even hear anything. If you are in a flat farmland, flat area whatsoever, you need to really harden yourself and prepare yourself ahead. So before any of these projects are even announced, you need to research your zoning, get to know your planning commission, get to know your county supervisors or commissioners so that you have a really good relationship with them. Attend those meetings. And every single time the planning commission or the county supervisors put out their agenda before they have a meeting, you need to have 1 to 2 people designated in your community who make it their job to read every single piece of those agendas to identify if these AI data centers are moving in, because once they move in, they like to move fast. And what happens is once they break ground for these surveillance centers, judges are unlikely to ever do an injunction. Stopping it once they have broken ground is highly, highly unlikely. So time is of the essence. So
you need to even before breaking ground, they get to the point where they've made all the plans, and it's like too late now. And the way they get away with it, they also, in some cases with the private data centers, have had the owners of the property and other people sign NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, and so they're not the people who are profiting from it are not, or the governmental people are not allowed to disclose what the agreement really is. So you have to find out really early that this is in the works, because at some point the governmental people are going to say, well, it's too late. We've already signed contracts. We've already,
100%.
time into it.
And contractual law supersedes constitutional law, right? So you'd be smart, folks, if you again are in those flatlands, farmland, you'd be smart right now to do a public records request if you're in California, or a freedom of information request the rest of the states. You should just do it now. And again, we have all those questions in this document, like what to ask, and just get ahead of the curve. Like if there's any, because the communications are going to go on way ahead of, you're saying, way before there's ever a press release, way before it's on the agenda. So I would even just get ahead of the curve and just do the public records request, the FOIA now. And the other thing that's important too is, if you have it, I would really try to get your property appraised. Like, what is its real value right now? Because if they want to come in here and use eminent domain, they're going to say, well, your property is only worth this, and it's going to be pennies on the dollar. And you're going to say, no, actually, I just had it appraised. This is what its real value is. God forbid that happens. And then also really document, your property, survey it, water quality baseline, agricultural use records, historical records, and things like that. So, and then, if and when a project is announced, you have to act immediately. I mean, do not waste any time, and you want to go out there and you want to get a really good eminent domain attorney. And the objective at that point in time, of course, is do the public records request, identify, the decision makers in your community, start sitting down with them. And I would also really pull the records on who have been donors to their campaigns and so on, because you're probably going to see a lot of behind the scenes money, passing hands. And so get to know them, get to know, who are they in bed with and so on. And then at that point in time, you really want to organize your neighbors. And I would also encourage on a much larger level that people find out other communities in the United States who are also fighting and pushing against, and really get on a Telegram channel, be very, very specific who you have on there. Don't just have it open to everybody. And you communicate with the leaders who are, pushing back against in other states, because there's a lot of information, there's a lot of tactics, there's a lot of stuff you can really, missteps, you can share, like, don't do that. And really create a very strong nationwide coalition quietly, so that you can actually have each other's backs and learn from each other. And then start organizing your neighbors around your area, collect signatures, document opposition and so on, and really build that public record.
Yeah, it's not just eminent domain, though. I mean, all of these, Meta's got plenty of money to throw at it. They don't need to. It's only when they're local opposition that they go to eminent domain. Otherwise, they just buy out the. I mean, if my land is worth, let's say it's worth $50,000, and somebody comes in and says, "I'll give you $5 million for it." You're not going to have to use eminent domain in order to convince someone to sell their land for that.
Right.
It's the neighbors who are going to suffer for it. So it's not always eminent domain.
No, not at all. And and this is the thing is too. This is why it's really important to also have really good relationships with your neighbors, right? Because what's happening here in our community is we have vindictive neighbors who are going out there signing the contract with Verizon to put a cell tower 200 feet up, nearly. Because they don't like their neighbors and they don't give a damn. I mean, it's really ugly. It's very ugly that you have neighbors actually weaponizing cell towers against the neighbors they don't like. So really be good to your neighbors. Share your chicken eggs and bring them a fresh loaf of bread. So it's really important to have good neighbors and good strong relationships with them. And so there's it's not always eminent domain, but this is one thing that we are seeing right now. They're using big time, and
that's a new aspect of it. Yeah.
Yes, hundreds of homes at the same time, not just one, not just two, but like hundreds of homes. They're using eminent domain. So that just popped. It's
right. And the other thing is that that you got to recognize the pattern, because this whole putting in the cell towers, bringing in the license plate readers, it's all things that are happening, and they're happening in secret for a long time before people get the idea, because the public doesn't like any of these things. So, and we have a clip that Lou wants to show too. Can we show that now?
I would think, since you disagree with the Chinese way of life, which is pretty civilized in a lot of ways, but the one way in which it's barbaric is that it grants its citizens no real rights. And so I would think that you would be very worried about aping their system, which we are now doing. They have total surveillance. It's panopticon in China. We should create our own. Let's take 40,000 acres in Utah and make it possible for the government to know where you are at all times and what you're thinking, listening to you on your phone. Like, we have that.
You have to choose the less of two evils in your scenario. And I'm telling you, what you should do is say, I want Kevin O'Leary to succeed. I want him to beat the Chinese in compute power. Then use the laws of the United States to make sure that you keep that compute power in check. To not have it available, to put down my shovel. I don't think people want me to do that. Even the people in Box Elder, the majority of them want me to hold my shovel and start digging.
There was a referendum among citizens?
3-0. The commissioners of the county said, we want to be
three people voted. The people of the county.
They're elected officials. That's how you do it.
How hard is it for Kevin O'Leary and Amazon and Microsoft and Google to subvert 3 county commissioners in rural Utah?
Tucker, they asked us to come. They asked us to bring $15 billion. There's no other way to do it.
Google and Kevin O'Leary got 3 county commissioners in rural Utah on their side. Good work.
Yes. There is this interesting thing that is being done in the Silicon Valley realm and world, and what they portray to us is that it's this binary, it's either us or China. That's it. It's either Silicon Valley or it's China. And you'd rather have us dictate your lives, surveil you, control you, and imprison you, through this digital ID than have China do that. And that's what they're saying. It's like, actually, no, we have more options than that, which is like, not at all.
Well, and there's this saying of we have to beat China. What does beating China mean?
Well, I mean, they're saying it's an AI race. It's an AI race, which is allowing them the excuse also to go out there and do dangerous things. So in one hand, we're being told AI is the Antichrist. It's going to be end of civilization as we know it, but we're going to just keep doing it. It's like, why do you keep doing it? And why, if it is the Antichrist and really bad for our nation, why don't you instead put up firewalls of protections and laws and global agreements and treaties where this can't happen? But instead, they're using China as the excuse to justify this surveillance dragnet on steroids. And what O'Leary is saying is truly hogwash.
Right. And I ran across an article which I think we'll have in our notes, talking about what AI the military, the Pentagon is using, and because it's the same companies, ChatGPT, Grok, or whatever the one with X is. They are contractors to the federal government. Well, I never thought of this, but they have their AI actually uploads information that's classified like CIA even information, so that the AI that's being used by the Pentagon and presumably other government contractors, it has access to information that you and I do not have. So it's not the same AI that we can search and find out what's going on, which is somewhat limited. And quite frankly, they use Wikipedia a lot in the publicly available AI. But, it's becoming very powerful. And so it has the military uses and probably the CIA, uses, and then what you and I do to do research, that's a different thing.
The other thing that's happening is Walmart just announced that in 2020, the end of 2026, they're now going to be doing digital pricing. And what that means is when you go to Walmart, which I would never go, and I know people need to because they don't have a lot of money, but when you go to Walmart, they're going to base the price of the product you're looking at through your biometrics on essentially your social credit score. And not just what you can afford or can't afford, but your social credit score. So
they're already doing it based on the information that's been collected on your cell phone. So if you take your cell phone into certain places, perhaps like Walmart, they're going to be able to see that you are approaching whatever display or whatever. And yeah.
Oh, no, and it can also track your eyes. Yes. Mm-hmm.
Just continue on that whole Walmart thing and describe what that actually means. What are you actually saying?
So what I'm saying is that, how you see a little price tag on each product on the shelf?
Yeah.
Well, what they do, it's actually a digital little screen. They have those cameras all along the aisle. And when you're looking at something, depending upon who you are and what your score is, the price will change.
So if I'm super wealthy, it's going to go up?
Probably.
It could, or if you are a social activist, a political activist, and you're calling out stuff, it could also go up even more because it's a type of punishment, or they know how your shopping is. So if they maybe reduce it a little bit, you'll maybe buy more of the products. But essentially, they'll have all that data available to use, and each person is going to get a different price.
So this basically is loss of freedom. This is why people need to step up.
It's incremental. Yeah, it's incremental. Each little thing doesn't seem incredibly dangerous, but when you put it all together, it's a whole control system.
Right. And so these data centers will have all that information, right? So like Walmart, the Walmart's connected to these surveillance centers. It knows exactly who you're with, what you're doing, where you're going. And there's like nothing, there's no fighting it. There's no one, you can't get on an 800 number and say, hey, hello, this isn't right. I'm getting overcharged. There's none of that. And so these centers are for that. And so everything is going to be crafted in your life and everything's going to be curtailed and surveyed or surveilled so that you just don't have the freedom that we know today.
But why? And the big question is why? What's the long-term goal here with doing this to us?
I mean, for me, it does seem like what we're looking at is definitely population reduction. And I think that those who are still here will be completely controlled, and they are going for massive automation and transhumanism. And I know this sounds all very scary, but when we were talking about this 5 years ago, it seemed like it was way in the future, a long way away. And now it's like, no, it's upon us, and they're extremely aggressive, and they're weaponizing the military, they're weaponizing Silicon Valley, they're weaponizing our own local governments, executive orders, legislation, the FCC. All of these things just in the last year, Polly, have become weaponized against us. And it's on steroids. It's completely on steroids.
Well, part of it is they want our assets.
Well, they want everything. They want our water, they want our farmland, they want our homes, they want our towns. I mean, and they want our local governments to go away. They want our local governments to go away.
Right.
And
state control.
And have complete control. We've literally had during congressional hearings, congressmen say, pesky local government. Like it's kind of in our way, and it needs to go away. So we're considered local government, local control is considered pesky by a lot of our representatives.
Can we win this? Can we stop this?
Yes, I mean, part of the battle is making people aware, right? Because what we have in our favor are our numbers, right? And our local control. And maybe someday, Polly, we have to literally get out in the streets, because what's happening in Europe is you have farmers who are also having their farmland being taken away. And they're out there with their tractors and their bulldozers, and they're dropping loads of horse manure in front of Parliament and in front of, their leaders' homes, and they are pushing back. And it might take something like that. If we can't use the courts, if we can't use our representatives to stop this through legislation, then it's probably going to require something like this, because this is do or die. Because once those centers are in there, it's going to be it's going to be very, very difficult to stop it then. It's going to be very difficult. So this is fast approaching, and people have got to take this quite seriously. And what's going on now with the interruption of the oil supply, the powers that be are going to be selectively picking who gets energy and who does not, and who gets water and who does not. And they're already prioritizing the AI data centers. So what we just saw with Lake Tahoe getting the announcement, you're not going to have 75% of your energy next year. That's going to be happening all across the United States.
And what does that look like for us, so that people truly understand?
Excuse me?
What does that look like? You're going to have 75% of your energy. What does that, if you live
it's going to have to be prioritized, and that's where your local leaders have to make the decision. But more than likely, what would happen is that you'd have a lot of brownouts where you have power for a short bit of time to do whatever work you need to do. And then they have to prioritize. They have to prioritize water, sewage, in the treatment center. And then whether or not Waste Management can even afford a diesel to pick up your garbage and so on, you're going to learn how to dispose of it on your own. So this really depends upon each city. Rural areas are going to be hit really hard, because I think they want us out of rural areas. That's part of that 2050 agenda. And so cities, and I really, really encourage, and I will be going to my city council, my county, saying, do you guys realize what's going on? I did this with COVID. When coronavirus came along in January 2020, I went to our county, I went to our city, said, hey, there's this weird thing called coronavirus, and I think it's going to be an issue. And they had no idea what I was talking about. And when they did, they downplayed it, and it blew up. So now I'm going to return and say, hey, we got another issue here. We're about ready to run out of oil. You need to deal now. Either you get solar panels, or you find out some other way to run your wastewater treatment plant or your water treatment plant and have power to pump the water to homes and businesses, or we're going to cease to exist. You can't live without water and power.
And our system is not designed to live without electricity. I mean,
no. And this
elevators in high rises run on electricity. A high rise can't function without electricity.
Well,
so
and
what,
fires.
Are we going to have a bunch of high rises that are empty? I mean,
and you have to prioritize 9/11, right? Cal Fire, forest fires, bombers. When there's a fire, are we not going to have diesel for the fire engines? I mean, I can't tell you. As a former elected official, I'm waving the red flag right now. We are in a dire straits, and to sit there and go, I don't think it's that bad. It's like, this is not like a conjecture. I think we're in a pickle. Like, for instance, California, who ironically buys a lot of its oil from Russia, we closed down refineries last year. And our last oil tanker just delivered to Long Beach, and that's it. And you can't just start piping in oil here and there and put out a bunch of solar. I mean, we're talking years down the line. So I'm like, hey guys, Californians especially, we are an energy island of sorts. And that's also because we have higher standards of cleaner diesel and gas. We don't have the capacity now just to, within a matter of a few weeks time to start pumping gas and diesel and oil into California. We're in a dire situation. So what's going to happen is you're going to have the government making the decision that this community and that city are no longer going to get energy. We're going to give it to the AI data centers, and they're going to get it. It's already happening. It's already happening. And people need to rise. And what's our power? Our numbers. And there's an election coming up. So when you have you have people who are running, you get them on the podium to say, are you going to stop this? Are you going to protect us? And if you don't, we're going to recall you. As soon as you get in, you go the other way, you become a turncoat, we're going to recall you. And folks, we're there. We're there.
The ripple effect will be food shortages and things like that.
Shortages, medicine. The other thing is what happened during the Great Depression is you did have farms and they had ranch animals and they had food, but they didn't have a way to distribute it. And so that's the same thing here. You might have local organic farms, you might have people who, are a ranch, but how do you get it to them? Like, seriously, I'm looking at getting an e-bike that can be powered by solar panels with a little trailer behind it so that I could go out there and deliver water and food to my neighbors. And I'm not kidding whatsoever. And this is, how do you distribute? If somebody's growing, if somebody has a well, okay, that's great. But how do you get it to your neighbors? How did they access it? So in the Great Depression, farmers had to kill their animals because they couldn't slaughter it and get it to their neighbors and their clients. The farmers, they just let their crops die because they couldn't get it, they couldn't deliver it. So this is where we are, and people's medications. I have friends who are like, they would not live without their medication. Plastics are no longer going to be available. So how do you wrap your food? Plastics in bottles and bottle caps, and go out there and start getting jars right now, save them.
Well, I mean, okay, let's talk. And we've got 4 minutes. So people
Okay.
Okay.
So this is a perfect storm, and I'm not trying to scare people, but I have to wave my flag as a former elected official, knowing the domino effect that can happen. And I don't think people really realize, food shortages, but they're going to pick who gets energy and who does not. So when somebody comes in there and they're going to put an AI data center and they're saying it's for, the public good, that whole pretext, you got to fight it right away, and you got to hire the eminent domain attorney or whatever, an attorney to get an injunction and slow that train down. And then once you seek that injunction, then you can start working on, fighting and gathering everybody. And you've got to really, really build a political force to push back and say, you still get elected, we can still recall you, and so on. And then basically, I would also, as soon as something like that happens, you even get wind of anything, or even before you get wind, and you think you could be vulnerable as far as your farmland, and do a public records request, a FOIA right now on your elected officials, on your county, on your city, to see if there's already some discussions going on right now, and just nip it in the bud if you can. And so I do have all of that information in this document for you, almost 10 pages, as I said, including the websites, who to send the FOIAs to, what their website addresses are, and just kind of break it down and the questions themselves. And if somebody ever needs to get a hold of me, Reinette, REINETTE, at tutamail.com. You can reach me. I'm happy to hold your hand, happy to answer questions, happy to jump on a Zoom with you, whatever you need. So just know that I'm here.
Can I also comment that there is a layer between the feds and the local governance, and that is your state. And the state legislators need to be educated. They need to fight the federalization of everything. And when we fought the natural asset companies, we had a Utah, happened to be a Utah CFO, who was the head of the national, probably Republican CFO group, and they got together and signed an opposition letter to the actions that were being taken at the federal level, and the proposals were rescinded. So,
Right.
learning how the state functions and educating your your state representatives go in, make appointments, talk to them, and have them coordinating with the local people. That is important. The other thing that's really important is to get to know your neighbors, get to know the people who are local. Know who's got what talents, what understandings, what training, what physical, who knows how to farm, who knows about land use, and can go to the local meetings. But if you divide up the things that are needed among a whole group of people and make some fun about it, socialize with them, have potluck dinners and watch local hearings together or go to local hearings together. That's what we need, because the only way we as a population can fight things is with numbers and individual people. There are individual people like Reinette who have done great things, but even Reinette needs groups of people who are together, working together, who can make a direct impact.
I agree 100%. I put out a Substack a year ago. We used to do this in the city, which was a SWOT analysis. We did it every 6 months, which is your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, your threats. And I'm happy to actually give Lou that link. But basically, what you do is you get your neighbors together, and it's really important that you try to, really look at your geography, like your own watershed specifically. That's a kind of a good way to delineate. But you get people. Oh, thank you. You're so fast, Lou. I don't know how you do that, but nonetheless. So you get people together, and what you do is you talk around, you have that potluck, and you say, okay, I've got a generator. I know how to grow. I know how to pick herbs. I'm a doctor. I'm a this. We have someone who has their own fire truck, right? And it's not about you going it alone and having to do all of it. You have your specialty. You have your expertise, and every single person has something to contribute. And then you sit there and you do an analysis of you collectively, individually, and then collectively, and say, okay, this is where we're weak. We need this. And you work on that together. And that is the best thing to do. And every community, every neighborhood can do the same thing. And if you all do that, then you can kind of work in tandem. And also getting, VHS two-way radios to communicate is also going to be key, because if the power goes down, that means your cellular, your phone's going to go down. And how are you going to communicate? So I'm just going to say this. California specifically, I don't know about the rest of the states, but California has a matter of a few weeks before you start to see things just starting to kind of dismantle. And I wish I was kidding. I know that sounds very melodramatic, but I spent yesterday analyzing this, realizing how serious it is. And I put out my Substack this morning and say, we've got a problem, and California is going to be leading for the reasons I had mentioned. So I think it's really important that, I already put a word out to my dear friends from COVID saying, I think we need to hold an emergency meeting and we need to talk now. And I'm talking to my neighbors, and I'm just saying, guys, there's no way around this in California. We're not going to have the oil. And other states might be better because they did not, give up the refineries. And, I'm an environmentalist. I don't like them, but getting oil from Russia, which is what we've been doing, is not very environmental either. So, really looking and doing an analysis now while you have time to buy things and to really harden up is critical. It's really critical on all these fronts.
In Catherine's absence, I feel obligated to point out that we need to preserve cash.
Yes.
And that at the same time, we've got this programmable money coming in. And once you are subject to programmable money, you're not going to be able to make spending decisions and have access to your money as readily as you can now. So you need to keep spending cash and doing everything you can to tell your state legislators that it's really important that we not be forced into programmable money and this whole social credit system. And, you have to see that this is all integrated.
No, you're right, Carolyn. Going to your legislators is key right now, because the courts, how things can go in the courts, right, in a legal battle. You have got it. I have many times with others gone down and we educate our electives. And when they realize what's really going on, their staffers and so on. They're like, wait, what? They'll do something, but it's our job now to go get those mama bears, the people who are riled up, have it laid out, factual, very clear. Don't overwhelm them, saying this is the issue. This is what needs to be done right now, and you need to alert them now. And so that's your assembly member, that's your congressional representative, as well as your senators. They all need to know. And so it's not something to get all crazy about, but we need to move on it. We do.
Well, and this is election season between now and November. If anybody's going to do anything, they're going to please you. It's at least to make promises in order to get your vote. So
we're completely out of time, and so we do have to stop. But I'm wondering, could we continue this conversation next week on financial rebellion?
Yes, Reinette's going to be back next week.
Yeah, I want to hear more about California, the oil situation. It sounds like it's pretty dire straits, but we need to hear this so that we can act on it. So, Reinette, I feel so much safer now you're back on Financial Rebellion educating. You do make me feel safe. I don't know what about you. And Carolyn, it's always wonderful to be on the show with you. So next week, I presume Catherine will be back. If not, we'll just continue as we are. But thank you both so much.
Bye, everyone.
So can you tell us your name, please?
Clyde R. Stevenson, go by Rick.
And this is about your wife.
Yes.
And so did your wife take the COVID-19 shot?
No.
Why didn't she take it?
Because what she's been hearing and everything, that it was worse than not taking it.
Okay, and so what led her to go to hospital? How was she feeling? What made her go in? My granddaughter called and sent her in. She was, that night, she woke up that morning, rolled out of bed, and she was laying in the floor, and I couldn't get her up, and she couldn't get herself up out of the floor. Because she was sick with COVID?
Yes.
Okay, so you took her into hospital. Did you take her?
No, I had an ambulance take her.
All right, and did you follow?
I followed and went down and was thrown out of the hospital.
They wouldn't let you in?
No, they would not.
What was this, 2021?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So
September the 10th, the day she died on.
Was she communicating by phone or something with you? In any way communicating with you?
No.
In the hospital? No.
They would not allow.
So you had no communication?
No communication, no nothing. Until the last 2 days, about 2 to 3 days, they allowed me to go in.
And when you went in, what did you see?
Oh, she was in bad shape, but I thought she's coming around. Like they was talking at one point, like they're going to move her out of the IMU, and she was going to go to a regular bed. Then all of a sudden, it just went to 100% the other way.
Do you know if she was on remdesivir? Did they put her on that drug?
Yes.
What? Because I know your daughter's, you said, has got the medical records.
Yes.
Do you remember what your daughter's told you about those medical records?
No, not a whole lot. I know I did, but I get so upset about it that it just blanks back out.
I'm sorry. How old was she?
She was 59.
Too young.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I take that back. She wasn't 59. She was 69.
Well, what's that, 10 years?
Yeah.
Still young.
Yeah.
So she goes in, you don't hear anything from her. Do you have a doctor calling you or anything like that?
No.
Nothing, just complete
Nothing.
silence.
Anytime I ever got a call from it was for insurance, where to send and stuff. And you tried to tell them on the telephone, and it'd just go in one ear and out of the other. But they wouldn't allow you to come down to the hospital and sit down and talk to them even about that. And when I did go in there and see her, anything they was doing or anything I would make a comment, they just flat out tell me it was none of my business.
That's terrible.
I mean, how you like to be told it's none of your business? They asked her something and she'd go say anything, you say anything about it, we're not talking to you, just keep your nose out of it.
It's terrible. So when you went in to see, how did you get to go in? Did they call you?
They finally called me and allowed me to go in after I had to go down and take a vaccine.
Did you have to go and get a vaccine?
Yeah.
So they said you can come and see her if you go and get a vaccine.
Yeah.
How many did you get? Just the one?
No, I ended up taking 2. I got 1 at the time, and I went back and took the second one. I actually went back later on. They'd had that, the booster. I took 1 booster. Okay, I got very sick on the second shot. The booster made me super ill, and I wouldn't take another one for nothing.
It's awful they made you take a shot to go and see your wife.
Yeah.
So anyway, you took the shot and you went in to see your wife.
Yes.
And she was conscious?
Yes.
And so were you able to hold her hand and sit
No,
with her?
I wasn't allowed to touch her.
You weren't allowed to touch her?
No.
Even though you'd had the so-called
Yeah, you still wasn't allowed to touch them. You know how they was saying back then that the people that don't have vaccine is what causing people with vaccines to get sickness. And anybody knows anything knows that's impossible. If the vaccine was worth a dime, you might be able to give it to a person that don't have it. They sure isn't giving it to you.
So, but you could talk to her?
Yes.
And what did she say to you?
She was conscious. It's hard. It's been 2 years now. 2 years and 4 months and 20 days.
Oh, you're counting the days.
Oh, yeah. And she didn't have a whole lot to say, but they were trying to give her medicine and send her home. They wasn't going to give it to her till she got home. They said, oh, she wouldn't be there in a few minutes. In other words, they're basically trying to kill her. And I talked her out of that. And basically 2 days later, without nothing I had to say or nothing I could do, they done it to her right there in the hospital.
They killed her?
Yeah, they basically killed her.
So when was the next time you saw her, when she'd passed away?
I'd allowed to, in the funeral home, we was allowed to go and see her with all the doors shut. Just us. That's the only time I was allowed to see her again. When you was out in her funeral, she was not, just the box had to be closed.
Do you have children?
I have 2 girls. My oldest daughter is a nurse. She's a director over surgery in Orlando Hospital, Florida.
Does she understand the real situation that went on here?
She wasn't happy about it. Mm-hmm. And she did not really stand up to agreeing with anything they'd done.
And how's your other daughter doing?
Lisa takes it very hard.
Come on.
Of course, I've took it pretty rough myself. This last 4 months been easier on me than anything before. It's kind of eased up a little bit there. But before it was terrible.
Oh, I'm really sorry.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you want to tell people?
It's hard to really sit down and tell them that the mess you go into. Basically, when with the hospital, I don't think they ever tried to do anything to save her. It was basically, well, we got rid of another one.
No more vaccinations for you?
No, I never took another. I have no intention.
Thank you for telling the story. Caroline's going to print off a picture of your wife, and we're going to put her in the bus.
Oh, thank you.
We're going to sign her name on the outside of the bus, and we're not going to forget her.
Good.
What was her name?
Brenda Joyce Stevenson.
Brenda Joyce Stevenson. Right. Thank you for telling the story.
46% of the American people say mandates are dangerous, they're damaging, and vaccine science isn't settled.
A steady decline of childhood vaccine rates. Vaccination rates continued to decline last year.
There's a discourse about vaccines that didn't exist before.
Children's Health Defense.
Children's Health Defense.
Children's Health Defense.
Children's Health Defense.
Children's Health Defense is the leader in the health freedom movement.
The Department of Health and Human Services is overhauling the immunization schedule.
Now only recommending 11.
We are making recommendations that are science-based, that are common sense.
Secretary Hegseth, discarding the mandatory flu vaccine requirement.
Your body, your faith, and your convictions are not negotiable.
People recognize you have to be able to make an individualized decision.
For the first time, the U.S. FDA will acknowledge that COVID-19 vaccines killed American children.
States are putting in place medical freedom laws. There's bills in Congress that Children's Health Defense is supporting, the GRACE Act for the right to religious exemptions, the End the Vaccine Carve-Out, ending liability protection, and Tom Massey's bill to repeal the PrEP Act.
One of the most aggressive medical accountability lawsuits in decades.
Suing the American Academy of Pediatrics.
CHD is suing under RICO laws, claiming that the AAP operates as a criminal enterprise and has for decades.
A federal judge yesterday blocked Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s recent overhaul of the nation's childhood vaccine schedule.
They basically just froze all vaccine policy.
The American Academy of Pediatrics and other medical groups filed a lawsuit arguing the vaccine changes violated federal law.
Which is outrageous for a single judge sitting in Boston to stop any work at the Centers for Disease Control related to vaccines.
This conflict between medical freedom and medical coercion, it's a fundamental conflict that we must resolve now in favor of medical freedom or forever be truly slaves to medical tyranny.
I am so glad that there are people like you who are still fighting this.
Children's Health Defense. If you don't know what they do, folks, look it up.
We have got to, as a society, global, decide, is medical coercion okay, or do you have a right to decide what happens to your body?
This and all CHD TV programming is made possible by generous support from viewers like you. Please consider making a contribution today to keep our programming going strong. Thank you.